Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and today I have a guest, Corey Poirier, and I have had him on my podcast before, and we connected, and he is, talk about connected, he is so connected. He's been on TEDx multiple times. He's interviewed 5,000 world changers. So without further ado, welcome.
Oh, thank you
And
so much. I'm super excited to be here.
yes, yes. And I would just like for you to start out by telling us a little bit about you so that people who haven't met you know who you are and what you're about.
Wow. So there's so many directions I could go with that question. So I'm going to take the shortest path there. I'll just say that if I go backstory, and I won't stay too long in this area, Kimberly, but I grew up in a small town, raised by a single mother. I barely graduated high school, so got a 49 plus one in a class where I needed a 50. So I can probably say legally or ethically I didn't graduate, but a teacher gave me the graduation. I think it was always meant to serve as a reminder that I didn't fully earn it. And I often wonder if I even get the 49 or if he bumped me up from like 47. But the point is, I wasn't written up as the kid most likely to succeed or even likely to succeed. And I left school, which still shocks me to this day, that left school without knowing the difference between fiction and nonfiction. Hadn't read a book until age 27, not a full one. And then I said to my mother, I want to write a book. And she said, I think you have to read one first. And so I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it changed everything for me. So I got into personal development then. Not long after, I got into speaking on stages. I ended up writing my first book about a year after I read the first one. And it just kept snowballing from there. So that's how it all started. And then what it looks like now is I've been a paid speaker for about 20 years. But 6 years ago, people started saying to me, how are you getting paid to speak so often? So I launched a speaking program, started teaching it. Then about 3 years ago, people started saying, how did you get 3 TEDx's in a short amount of time? So I started teaching it. And then finally, about a year and a half ago, my students were asking for a talk or an event where they could speak about spirituality on a stage similar to TEDx. And I couldn't find one to offer them. So I eventually created it. And that's called Blue Talks, which is a brand we created, which includes the live events, book series, podcasting, and a virtual event. And then to bring us full circle, the most recent baby is the Influencer Vault, which is a member site that we launched to help people. I kind of say it like this: we're trying to help people who would otherwise become influencers tomorrow become influencers today. And so that's kind of me in about a 2 or 3 minute nutshell.
Yeah, that's great. That kind of summarizes everything. So yeah, and so many people want to be an influencer right now because I have a friend, Nigel Henry. I've had him on the podcast, and he says your mouth is your money maker. When you're
Mm.
talking, you're making money. So a lot of people want to be on a podcast or do a TEDx talk or have a YouTube channel or somehow be in on that stage where they can tell people what their message is, why they're here, what is my special gift that I want to share with you. And when I share it with you, you're going to give me money because I'm sharing my gift. So it's a win-win situation. So let's just start with a few things. TEDx. A lot of people would really love to be on TEDx. How do we do that? What is the secret?
So I'll say it this way, Kimberly. The good news for me is there's multiple secrets. I say that because if somebody wants to work with me, obviously, I want to still have a secret close to my chest so that they're getting a value from working with me. But having said that, I want to also reveal some secrets so that even if a person never works with me, they can at least have a heads up or a little bit of shortcut. And so I would say a couple of things about TEDx. One, and this is probably the biggest reason why most people get turned down, because the numbers are against you. Like, I'm being full disclosure. Why does it still seem so prestigious to land one? It's because it's so hard to land one. Why is it so hard to land one? It's because the numbers are working against you. What do I mean by that? At a large TEDx event, you could have 5,000 applicants. 5,000 is a little high, but let's say between 2,000 and 4,000. And you're applying for 10 spots. There's only 10 spots. So that means you have less than 1% chance of landing a TEDx talk at that event, unless you know the organizer, you just had a story in the national news. Like if you everything's equal and you're saying, I just want to land a TEDx talk, then you're competing with that. And that's a hard uphill battle. So here's one short hack right away. What you can do if you want to shorten that path, depending on where you're based, But even if you're based in a large city that's close to a smaller place, find a smaller TEDx event. So some of the TEDx events in rural areas might have only 100 applicants. So do you want to compete with 2,000 or 100, right? So now your odds have gone up to 10% immediately simply because it's lower numbers. A lot of people don't realize they could travel to a place that's maybe only an hour away, or that they could go to a smaller event. A lot of people are worried about going to a smaller event because, well, a bigger event's going to have a better chance of going viral or being seen by more people. But TEDx doesn't work that way. If you go look at the TEDx talks, like Simon Sinek's was delivered at a small little place, and it's one of the most viewed TEDx talks of all time. There's not really a rhyme or reason that says you have to be in TEDx New York to have a viral video. So if that's the case, and if most people don't view the name that comes after TEDx, it doesn't matter to them. So in other words, people don't care if it's TEDx Dawson City or TEDx Nebraska. It's just you're a TEDx speaker. And they even leave it off. They don't say he spoke at TEDx Nebraska. They say he's a TEDx speaker. So what I'm getting at is you can now go to the smaller event, have a better chance of speaking, and have the same prestige. There's no reason not to. The reason, like I say, most people don't is because they want to speak if they're in a big city. They want to speak in their hometown or the city they're in. But I'm just suggesting this is one real shortcut. That's one. Another thing is you need to know what the organizers are looking for. So this is another place where people get mixed up or tripped up. Is I had one organizer tell me they turned down about 90% to 99% of the applicants based on how they answer the first question. So when I just told you there's 2,000 applicants, what if you could bring that down to only 50 you're competing with because you answered the first question right? Mm-hmm. So that brings up your percentage. So what does that mean? I'll give you an example. Here's one thing about TEDx. They love introducing new talks to the world. So here's where people get tripped up. You could have a question worded. You just talked about you're going to deliver your talk on the magic of thinking big. I'm just picking the name out of the air. And they ask the question, how many times have you delivered this talk and are you comfortable delivering it? Well, what do you think the logical thing that goes to everybody's head? Delivered it 25 times, know it inside out. They don't want that. They want to know that it's a new talk that you haven't delivered. But the way the question's worded, it looks like they're looking to see, are you comfortable delivering it? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't know. They're not looking for motivational speakers. They're happy to have a speaker that's never spoken on a stage in their life before and to deliver a talk that nobody's ever heard before. But people get tripped up because they're trying to impress them. So they'll say, oh, I deliver this talk all the time. Oh, well, you're out. X. Mm-hmm. But yet they think, well, how come I didn't get picked? I even told them I'm comfortable delivering my talk. Yeah, that's why you didn't get picked. But if you don't know that that's how the thinking process is, those kind of things eliminate you. So what my goal is with people is to get them higher and higher so that all of a sudden they have a 90% chance rather than a 1% or less than 1. So even just that thing I told you just now, answering that question right probably brings you up to like 30%. Because again, a lot of people would answer that question wrong. And so we just add on layers of all these secrets that people don't realize when they're applying, and each one increases your odds. To the point where one of our students, she's spoke at TEDx LA Sierra, I think it was called, Sierra. And it was the first talk she ever applied for. She'd wanted to be on a TEDx stage for 7 years, talked about it for 7 years. And then we applied the first one and she was selected. And all the things that, like the things I just mentioned to you and more, are all the things we did to make sure she had her odds were really good. We had a lady named Kelly Filardo, who is, was a speaker first. Now she helps people with best-selling books. In between there, she came to me and said, I'd love to do a TEDx talk. She got scarred when she was 2, burned by fire. And she has this powerful story. And anyway, long story short, within 4 hours of joining us, she tried another hack, one I didn't share today yet, but tried another hack and she landed her first one. And then 4 months later, she landed her second one. But it's not that I'm a wizard or anything. It's just that there's things that work. And if you know the system inside and out, you have a better chance. Your odds just keep increasing. And so what I would say to people is do it strategically. Don't just go onto the computer and say, I want to apply TEDx Nebraska and start typing and press send, because your odds are going to be really low unless you know somebody. So those are some hacks. And I'll give one more. It's such an easy example. What she did is I said, put your talk out there, your idea. People are worried about things are going to get stolen. I can't promise you they won't, but most cases, people are too busy to steal your idea. And not only that, if you put it out there, then the world knows you put it out there. But what I'm getting at is put it out there on the social media and say, I'd love to do a TEDx talk around this. What do you guys think of this topic idea? Or I'd love to do a TEDx talk. Who knows a TEDx organizer? And what I'm getting at is that this lady who I'm talking about, she did a version of that. We prettied it up a bit more than that, but that's how she got her first one, because they said, oh my gosh, Kelly, I've seen you speak before. We're organizing our TEDx event and I didn't know you were looking for one. boom, done. It was as simple as that. So again, it's all these little hacks for how you can land it. And not to go into a moment of what we do as a business, but I'll just say a lot of things that people forget as well is it's one thing to land the talk, but then you got to deliver it and knock it out of the park. And then the third part is you got to know how to leverage it once it's out into the world. And so I don't like just helping somebody land one. I want them to know when they get on the stage, they're going to crush it. And I also want them to know once it's done, they know how to get bookings from it, paid bookings, like literal paid bookings. And they know how to get leverage it for media or to get a book deal with a publisher. So anyway, everybody wants a TEDx talk. Those are probably 3 hacks that bring you up to maybe like 40% chance versus less than 1.
Great. So you're helping people with the TEDx talks, but then you invent Blue Talks. So why Blue Talks? And who's on Blue Talks?
So Blue Talks really came out of this idea that I had students in both my speaking program that I referenced and my Brand to Talk program saying, on one hand, the students were saying, I wish you had a approach where I could literally walk on the stage, send in a chapter in a book, and you do the rest. So us market it, brand it, even do the production, edit it, all that stuff. So I had students asking me for that. And then the real clincher happened when students said, I wish, do you know anywhere, like I applied for TEDx, but I found out later that they're not big on spiritual ideas. And I talk about Akashic Records, and I don't want to change that. So do you know of a spiritual type branded event? And I couldn't find one, Kimberly. So I was like, okay, I can't find that. And these people over here said they wanted me to do something where we're doing the work and building this. So I said, why can't I merge the two? So now you're speaking in front of a live audience. I'm helping the influencers get stages, and we're able to mix. So Blue stands for Business Life Universe. It's the 3 letters, BLU. And so we're mixing the 3 of those. So you could have somebody sharing a business message, somebody right after on the stage sharing a life story, somebody right after sharing a story about synchronicity or something, spiritual. And so that's really why Blue Talks and what Blue Talks. So the speakers you would see on that stage can range anywhere from entrepreneurs to healers to solopreneurs to podcasters. It really is a big range, but what they're going to be talking about for the most part is those 3 categories: business, life, universe.
Now, are Blue Talks all virtual? I know we've been through a strange year, but are they all virtual, or do you have some live and some virtual?
So initially they were all live. So we weren't planning to even go virtual. And then we did our first 3 events, and then COVID appears. And then we have done 2 other live events during COVID, heavily restricted, but we were able to pull 2 off. So we've done 5 live events in a little over a year. But the plan was to keep doing live events. So we have 4 scheduled for this fall. But in between, what happened was one of my students came and said, I just watched this live event by a guy named Pete Vargas called the Rise Up Challenge. And she said, I saw thousands of people were engaged in this. And she said, I don't have the network, but I would love to do that. And then I realized, well, I'm a part of Blue Talks. And even though we're not as big maybe as that, we're over 100 at that point. Now we're around 300. But she's like, maybe we could do a virtual thing like this. And I wasn't sold. I was like, I don't know if I want to have virtual. I'm still wanting to do live. And I know we're not gonna be able to do live for a bit, but I don't know if I want to have virtual. And so ultimately I said, well, what do I have to lose to try it? So I tried it, and we had around 44,000 viewers that week.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, there is something here. It's been up and down since we started. That was last June. So I guess we're a year now, almost a year, probably. I don't know, almost to the date, I imagine. And I don't know how many we've done now, but I feel like it's 8, maybe, or maybe more. And we're around 50,000 have viewed it. So it goes up in spells and down in spells. The first one was like through the roof. And then what it also allows us to do, so this goes back to benefiting people involved. They get to be on our virtual stage. They get to present in front of an audience. They get to offer stuff, like if they have services, we let them talk about that as well. But even bigger than that, or as big as that, we also bring in a lot of big name speakers, like your Les Browns, like your Bob Proctor. So then what's neat is that these Blue Talk speakers can now in their bio say they shared the bill with Les Brown and Bob Proctor, which is huge for their bio. We did one of our events at Harvard. And so one of the girls, she said, like, being able to say I spoke at Harvard and shared the bill with Les Brown and Jack Canfield through Blue Talks, she said, changed everything for me. Like, clients are willing to pay me more to work with me. And they were commenting on that. So going back to that point, yeah, it's one of those things where we are doing virtual events in stages. We do have the live. We are planning, I mean, we have 4 live events for the winter or fall, well, winter and fall, and I expect they'll all run normally. But the virtual events, I don't think we're going to get rid of, because it's just another way to get people's messages out. The virtual events now, I looked at it the other day, I think we've actually had 320 people on our virtual events now. It's insane in a year. And so it's a whole other stage. But here's one thing I didn't do is I didn't replace the live with virtual, meaning I didn't, for the people who are going to speak live, okay, never mind, we're just going virtual because of COVID. I said, no, we're going to go virtual and you still are going to speak live when we can run the event again. Because I think they're two different beasts altogether, and everybody was doing virtual, and I didn't want that to feel like that's all you're getting. I wanted to be both. So at some point we might have a live stream and a mix between the two, or a hybrid. But for now, what I would see is we have our 4 live events in the fall, and we'll probably do virtuals in between those.
Yeah. And, I know that you have interviewed 5,000 plus people, and you've been in the business for a long time, like, 20 years as a speaker. So did you make most of your connections as you were coming up over the years with these people? Or if people wanted to make connections with others, like if they have a show or they want to interview them, or they just want to make a connection for another reason, how do you connect with so many people at such a high level?
So we froze up, I think, for a second, but I think I caught it. Did you say, did I make most of my connections from speaking? And
Yes. So
I,
as you've gone through the years, you had 20 years of speaking, so you could have made connections then. But yeah, for people who actually want to make a connection with these people, to either have them on as, interviewees, or if they want to connect with them for business, that's a lot of connections. So how did you do that? And how do we do
so
that?
no, that's a great question, and it's kind of a 2-part answer, because the numbers, meaning interviewing a lot of people, that part just takes, I think, a lot of grit and even and kind of necessity. So I should explain, because a lot of times people are probably like, how did the numbers get so high? A big part of that was I had a newspaper, a business publication, similar to Success Magazine, for about 6 years, which is a monthly paper. And I interviewed about 80 to 100 people every month for that. So that's how the numbers really get up to, like, say, 3,000 originally. Now it's over 6,500. So it's not like I'm saying that it's only from that, but I just mean that's how it started building up so quickly. So getting the numbers is one thing, like building relationships and numbers. So I'm going to answer this question 2 ways. On one hand, how you could do that is you have to have a reason to reach out for an interview. So a podcast is a perfect reason. If you don't want to do a podcast, you could even do like a Facebook Live or Zoom Live or something. The problem with that is there's a lot of the bigger name influencers that won't, like, when you say Facebook Live, they're going to say, well, am I showing up for 3 people? Or like they're scared that, how serious is this? Whereas a podcast, it's a little easier to demonstrate. So what I would say is you have to have a good reason. So you could, if you want to just get the numbers in, then you could literally start reaching out to people, or you could post and say, like on radioguestlist.com and things like that, and say, I'm looking for interviewees. But if the other side, which is the bigger question, I think, is what if I want to get the big name influencers? And so that, I would say, it's a leverage thing to me. So I've jokingly said this week, I'm talking about activating the domino effect, which is like, how do you push the one domino over that knocks down 4 or 5 others at the same time? And so to me, that would be like, how do you get the big name that helps you get the other names? So it's a leverage thing in the sense that you have to work hardest for those first big couple of names. So I'm going to give you a real story for how it started with me. So one of the first biggest names that I interviewed was Jack Canfield. Now, Jack's done, thousands, like 5,000 plus interviews, meaning being interviewed. So on one hand, you could say, well, it was a big name, but doesn't he do a lot of interviews? But here's the thing. When I reached out, his office said he doesn't have anything coming out. He's probably, he turns down about 9 out of every 10 interviews. So he only does usually 1. So my head right there, I'm like, okay, well, he's doing like the Oprahs and the Larry King Lives. And so they were basically telling me it was a no. But I'm one of those people that I'm like, it's a no for now. And so I reached out once a month and said, has Jack changed his mind? Basically, like, assuming the sale. And Jack didn't change his mind. So what happened was, and this goes to, I'll add in creativity, be creative around how you do it. Be creative and fun, but obviously not in an unethical way. But I was listening to his interview on Success Magazine. Used to have a CD. I was driving in the car listening to an interview with a guy named Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan runs a thing called Strategic Coach. And Dan was talking about his retreat to Darren. And he said, Darren said, well, what kind of people come to the retreat? And he said, well, I know I can say it because they openly share it, but Joe Polish, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, and my light went off. Jack Canfield. He said Jack Canfield. And so I said, Dan said, I love this style of interview. And that was the style of interview I was doing. It was like Darren Hardy's. So I reached out to Dan's office and said, I'd love to interview Dan. And I know he liked the Success Magazine interview, so I'm sure he'd like our style of interview. And it took a little bit, maybe like 3 weeks to a month. I got Dan on the show. And then during the show, I brought up Jack a few times. And then Dan said at one point, you should get Jack on the show. He'd love the show. So then I clipped that audio. I sent it to Jack's team and I said, look, even Dan, Jack's coach, thinks that Jack should be on the show. And they replied the next morning and said, okay, you beat him to submission. Jack's going to be on your show. Let's work out the date. And then to finish the whole story off, which was really cool, is the day before, we aired on Saturdays back then. The day before he was on Larry King Live. The day after he was on Super Soul Sunday. And in between, he was on our tiny little show, which, by the way, I didn't add this part. We had just launched, so we didn't even have any numbers to show them. So we became on a show that we had no listeners. Now, that episode we had Jack on ended up having 5,000 listeners, which, as you know, for a brand new show is huge. It was Blog Talk Radio at the time. And back then, it's not a hack anybody can use, but you used to be able to, with LinkedIn, send out a message and say, send to my contacts. And, I didn't view it as spamming because at the time you could do it. It was a feature on LinkedIn and I had maybe 3,000 contacts. So that I'm sure helped get the 5,000 listeners. You can't do that anymore. It's probably good they got away from that because we'd all be bombarded. But the point is that I try to be creative, how I got Jack. And now here's where the story gets to what you would do if you're in the same situation. Now, all of a sudden I have Dan and I have Jack who I've interviewed. So now what I can do is I can go to somebody else that they know, Mark Victor Hansen, who co-created Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I can go to Mark's team and say, hey, Mark, we've had Dan, your coach, and Jack, your old partner in creating Chicken Soup for the Soul on our show. We think you'd be a great fit. And let's say Mark says yes. Then all of a sudden now we have 3, and then it starts getting interesting. What I would do then is what I would go look at Mark's site, at Jack's site, at Dan's site, and see who the influencers are that provided testimonials on their page. So then, like, for example, if it's Mark, then you go and see who's provided the testimonial and then go, okay, well, they probably like Mark. And now I can say we had Jack and Mark and Dan, and you see where it goes from there. And then, like I say, it gets not easy, but it gets so much easier when you start stacking that and you have like 8 or 10 influencers who agreed to be on your show. Then all of a sudden it gets so much easier to go to the next one because they're like, now I'm not taking a big risk because he's already had people on I like and respect. So that's where I would start. Get the big one knocked over, that big domino, and then leverage that domino to get one more. Now, for if I want somebody to be on a project I'm doing, I'll say, here's some of the people involved, and I'll list like 45 or 50 names of people that I know they know. Like, as I've done some research, seen who's on their website, who they spend time with. And this is interesting. I'm working on a documentary project behind the scenes. And 2 of the people that came in the project said, yeah, I want to be in it with all my friends. So think about that. My friends. So in other words, now I know that they're going to say yes, or likely to say yes, because all the other people in the documentary are people they hang out with. Mm-hmm. So they're like, I want to be in with all my friends. And I don't know, but they could pick up the phone and call their friends and say, are you really in this documentary? But either way, now I can name drop, if you want to use that term, a whole bunch of names. And all of a sudden that leverage gets so much easier. So I would start knocking over the big dominoes, and then eventually it'll get easier and easier.
Wow. So you were talking about radio, and I think you have a podcast now, and then there's TV or television or, visual radio, TV. So is there one that's better than another?
It depends on which way we're talking. So I was on online radio when I started. Then I moved to podcasting. Now our Blue Talks brand is on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, Google, Connect TV, C-Suite Network. And so we are on video is the only reason I added all those names. And so I have the kind of experience of all 3, radio, podcasting, and video. What I'm going to say is I think it comes back to the platform. So for example, when I started with online radio, I went with Blog Talk Radio. It was a great platform at the time. podcasting was really in its infancy. iTunes, I don't even think existed. And so, then I was promoting online radio as you're on radio, because it was online radio. So I was using the prestige then of radio. And the cool part is there was Stitcher satellite radio whenever I started, which would put you in cars. And so I could say we can get you on satellite radio, which has, it's had such a big name, right? Sirius satellite, like people think, oh, wow, it's huge. And so I was leveraging the power of that. But then iTunes eventually started coming out and just dominating quickly. And there's a point where I realized I had to switch over. So I don't know if there's a better medium outside of the fact that podcasting is a growing medium. And I don't mean this to hurt my radio friends, but radio is a dying medium. So the question is, which one do you want to invest your time in if you're going long haul? But if you're thinking a one-off interview and you can get on a big drive time show every day of the week, do that. But and I don't think one's better than the other. I just mean, if you look at the numbers, podcasting, they say only 15% of the people that have access to podcasts have ever listened to one. So, and it's growing every year. Radio, I mean, they're closing stations. So it's like, again, when I went from my newspaper to the podcast, it was the same reason. I'm like, who's going to be still reading print if I keep this going for 25 years? How can I grow this in a dying market? And there's still lots of specialty newspapers and papers, but it just wasn't the growing market. So if I looked at those two, I would choose podcasting over radio. That's one thing. Then the secondary, but it still comes back to the platform, because if you put me on Sirius satellite, I would take that every day of the week. But then if you go video, this is where it really gets tough, because if you ask me what's better at a podcasting video or podcasting audio, I'm going to say audio every day of the week. I don't know many people that have been able to have a massive bump in what they're doing using video podcast. Like, video podcasting just really hasn't seemed to catch on. So if a person was asking me that, I would say audio every day of the week. Now, where it gets tricky is YouTube, let's say, versus iTunes or what have you. And I would then say it depends how much you're going to go all in. YouTube, the people that are thriving on YouTube are going all in on YouTube. That's their baby. That's what they're going all in on. Evan Carmichael, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but we interviewed him a little bit back. And Evan has a YouTube page with 450 million viewers. 450 million views. And I think it's like 3 million subscribers. So how did he get that? 10 years, 5 videos a day. So and 5 videos a day is a lot. Like, his videos are 10-minute videos that are well produced. So what I'm saying is that's a full-time job, but now he's crushing it on YouTube. So I think YouTube takes more effort. And for those that don't put in the effort, it has less payoff. So I would still probably pick podcasting, but YouTube is a second close. And I'm just using those examples because they're the biggest mediums within that. But then the last part is those specialty ones, like I said, like Connect TV or Apple TV or Roku. And those, I think it comes down to how much are you going to promote it? Because really it's going to come down to what promotion you do as to how many people see those. So I guess really what I'm saying is probably my favorite out of the bunch is probably podcasting, with video being a close second, with radio being maybe a close third.
All right, thanks. So I know there's people that would really like to take advantage of, all the skills you have to help them. So why don't you talk about the vault and, give us an offer we can't refuse.
I love that. So the vault, in a nutshell, it's called the Influencer Vault because it's around helping people become influencers sooner. I mean, my ultimate goal is, I used to want to be, I don't mean this in the way I wanted to from like a Me Inc. point of view, but I used to think of myself as the wave, like the big wave when you're surfing, you're looking for the big wave. So I felt like when I was one to many with the audience, I was kind of the big wave because I was trying to create a ripple. Now I see myself changing more to being the little wave behind pushing the big wave. So what I'm trying to do is help people get more stages, get more platforms, get in front of more people, learn that process. What does that work like? Learn the secrets, like we're talking about, the hacks from the best of the best. And so my biggest challenge always was, how can you do that in an affordable way? All of my other programs up to this date, other than maybe just like 1 and 2, if you just broke it down differently, you have to spend or invest more than $1,000. Most of them $2,000 or $3,000. And I was like, how can I change that? I want to work with more people. And so I worked 2 years behind the scenes to create this Influencer Vault, to bring it to under $50 a month, which was a challenge because we're delivering so much. And so what does it look like now that we've finally been able to create it? We started for about 6 weeks. It's been launched now as a soft launch, like just people in my inner circle so we could test it and get some of the hiccups out. I'm going to knock on wood because we didn't really find any hiccups. So that's a good thing. So what it is though, and I'll tell you the part that became the most popular without me expecting it is the thing called the list. So one of the things we do is we provide opportunities for people so that they don't have to go out and try to find out a summit that's looking for people or a podcast that's looking for guests. We actually curate that because I have people that come to me daily saying, hey, do you want to be on my summit? You want to be in my book? You want to share the bill with Jack Canfield? And my first question now, Kimberly, is how many spots do you got? So I want to know if I can share it inside the vault. And that's what we're doing. So in 6 weeks, we've added about 90 of those opportunities. So if nothing else, if you want to be an influencer, you come in there, you just apply for those and don't even pick them all. And that's going to keep you busy for I don't know how long. And we're adding more every month. In fact, the challenge will become overwhelmed. So you may want to choose, I just want to do podcasts or I just want to write for magazines. But we've linked probably about 80 writers up with 3 separate magazines, writing for magazines in the last 6 weeks. And so these are like legit tangible results. So that's the list. I call it the leads and opportunities list, or the category that's called leads and opportunities. And you go inside the vault and it's basically just a PDF that you can print out or online, just click on the links and start applying. So that's one thing. And that's helping you get the stages and the opportunities. Then also the vault itself is like a Netflix, whereas it's categories inside. So you can go into podcasting or speaking or writing. And some of the stuff I've been revealing today, you're going to get to hear stuff like that from the best of the best who've done it for years, like the Lisa Nichols, like the Les Browns. And then, so that's the inside the vault. Then we have the other part that's really cool that I love is the live interviews. So every week we do a live weekly influencer interview. And so just to give you an example, if a person is listening right now, June 2021, right now as we speak, this Thursday is JJ Virgin. Next week is Les Brown. Week after that is Bob Proctor. Week after that is John Gray. So you get to sit in live and ask them questions in real time. And what's that worth to a person? Like, what would a person pay for that? So what I'm doing is I'm using up all my asks, all my favors to make this stuff happen. The challenge I run into is we're always going to have big name guests, but we're only ever going to probably get them once. So why it's good for people to get in when they want to get in, they feel it's a good fit, is because the quicker you get in, the more live you're in front of. You're in front of Bob Proctor if you get in before the end of June, for example. And the other side is the price. If you jump in now, the price never increases. Anything I ever do, whatever price you get in on, it stays there as long as you stay a member in good standing. The other thing we did, which I mentioned to you off air, is we've also decided to add in I call it the Speakerpreneurship Entrepreneurship Masterclass. It's a 5-week class that I recorded a while back. We sold it for about $450. And then after we sold it to 100 and some people, we never sold it again. I'm making it available now so that if you come in June, you get that as well. That masterclass was 1 week of me teaching high level, how do you get paid to speak stuff. Second week was me interviewing Tom Zig Ziglar's son, revealing all the secrets from his father. Third one was me talking writing. Then fourth one was me interviewing James Redfield, who wrote Celestine Prophecy, him revealing all the secrets to sell 30-some million books. And then the fifth one was Kelly Filardo, who came in and talked about best-selling strategies and taught you how to launch a book on Amazon. And so those 5 weeks, basically, again, we charge $400 some. You now actually get it for free when you sign up in June for the vault. And the vault is, I think I mentioned it, but maybe I didn't, $44 Canadian, or converts to 35 US. So basically, I used to be able to say for the price of a cup of coffee, but it's even less than a cup of coffee a day if you drink Starbucks. Right. And so that's the vault in a nutshell. We also, I didn't add this, but we also have ongoing monthly trainings. So we have somebody coming up to talk about LinkedIn, somebody talking about media. The difference between that and the live interview, we can go anywhere with the questions, and I'm doing a Q&A. The monthly ones, it's specific around a certain topic area like social media or how to get media or LinkedIn. And then also I do a live Q&A once a month with everybody. And then finally, we have the Vault Originals, which you'll only find inside the Vault. So all of that stuff I just mentioned, like I say, $44 Canadian or 35 US a month.
Wonderful. Yep. That's a steal. We'll take it. So where do we go to get this?
Oh, you froze up. I think you said, where do we go to get?
Where do we go to get this?
Easiest place is theinfluencervault.com. So theinfluencervault.com. What that'll do is, and it's kind of a bonus, but when you go there, it'll say sign up for our free insights guide. And so you go there, you get a free insights guide. And we'll also, right now, it might change, but right now we're sending you 3 videos to give you a sample inside the vault. But what also happens is as soon as you do that, it redirects you to the sales page about the vault. So people can go grab the free gifts either way, no matter what. And then it directs them to the page where they can read all the stuff. Basically, it's more of a deep dive into what I shared about the vault, and the sign up links right in the page as well.
All right, wonderful. Is there anything else we need to know?
I would say just one of the things people always ask me about with all the interviews is what's the common traits of the world's top influencers? So I'll tell you the number one common trait, since I get asked this a lot. It's that these influencers, these top leaders, these people that are trying to get there are living on purpose and or living their purpose. We might call it their why. They figured out their why and they spend their time living in their why. And so what I would say, Kimberly, is if you've already found your why, great. You already know the answer. Meaning, like, this tip is, or this is for people, parting wisdom for people that maybe haven't found it. Whatever it takes, you need to find your why. And the reason I say that is because it's hard to know if you haven't experienced it. And I didn't know until I did, meaning if you said this to me when I didn't know it, I wouldn't really know what it felt like and I wouldn't know what I was missing. But what I'm going to tell you is almost every person I know that's found their why wakes up every day with a purpose. They wake up every day wanting to take on a new day. They'll work harder. They're sick less often. I mean, I call it fueled by vitamin P, and the P is for purpose. But it's like the vitamin you can't buy in the store, but it's the most powerful vitamin you'll ever take, is finding your purpose or your why or your calling or whatever you want to put on it. So I would say, figure out a way to live on purpose, whatever that takes. There's lots of tools, lots of exercises. Even if it takes you 6 months of actively trying, just know that the majority of people go their whole life without ever discovering their purpose. And I think that's the worst. I'm going to say the thing I feel the worst about is the know that the majority of people never know that feeling of waking up and saying, this is what I was here to do. So try to find your why if you haven't already.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And everybody go to the say it again, the website.
Theinfluencervault.com.
Influencer, no S, influencervault.com.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Corey. And we'll talk
Absolutely.
to you
Thank you so much,
soon.
Kimberly. It's been a pleasure.
All right.